Nice. Thank you for that intro. Hello, everyone, and I hope you're excited for a talk on color. Every time I go learn about color and I just like study it, I learn something new. This world is humongous, and I'm gonna try something new today, which is I'm gonna add some color into my language as I give a talk on color. So there might be some cuss words, but I'm gonna try to keep it as tasteful, colorful accents. I'm not just gonna cover this talk in red words. I'm gonna sprinkle in the word shit here and there maybe when it feels right. So be prepared for a potential of cuss words, because I just thought it'd be fun to be colorful while I talked about color. All right, so a couple of like upfront things. You might be on a display that does not show a high definition amount of colors, but that's going to be okay. So what we can do, like a quick test, like, let's see, where's it at right here? One of these, this one. Okay, so if your monitor, you can see a difference in these pinks here and these pinks here, that means my display, which is high definition, it's the only one I have in my house, by the way. So other than all my phones, which we'll get into. So I have one high definition display. This one that's actually right here on this screen is not high definition. If I move the colors over, all of that brightness goes away. But what's nice is I have you on my high definition monitor, streaming it to you. And what's happening is it's getting clamped, right? My monitor is producing very, very vibrant colors from my experience right now on my screen. But to you, this is getting compressed and cropped, and then it's getting sent to you probably in sRGB, which is the common denominator color format for everybody. And you're getting the difference. So you're able to see that this purple is more purple, and that these blues up here are like less muddy, but you're not really getting as an extreme feeling as I am. So if you have an iPad, or if you have because Apple devices are going to be the best right now, you can go see these colors in person. Like, open up my link that I gave you to my talk that's using those bright colors as the text colors, and you'll be like, okay, that is a very vibrant color, and they are very different in person. So I just wanted to be upfront that, like, in order to produce and see these super rad new colors that are like really vibrant, you have to have a display that can do it, and you have to have the code that's in there and can. Anyway, so yeah, what's nice though is we are streaming, and you're getting a clipped version, which allows you to get a sense of why. But I urge you to try this on your own device, because I think it will change the way there's a feeling to the color. It's so much more vibrant. Like, for example, in my apps, I'm going to start using a very, very high intensity color for my links, because when you're going through my web pages and you're like, why is this link so vibrant and enticing? It still looks like a normal blue, and it's like, no, I pulled that into a vibrant blue. I pulled that into the next level blue that you just subliminally don't know why it just looks so hot. Okay, so anyway, that's a little bit on color and how some of these things are working, and how I'm able to even show you these as I'm on. So this is Safari Tech Preview, and on a high definition display, sending you these colors. Okay, so let's talk about color gamuts of 2021, now that we've laid down a little bit of that like framework here, and start off with the problems. Like, okay, hey, there's millions of colors. Why the hell do I need more? Like, I was, I go to Best Buy or someplace, and there's like 50 TVs on the wall, and they're all like, look at all my colors and all that. I'm just like, I don't care. I can't really. The blacks are deeper blacks or whatever. And for years, I didn't care. I kind of still don't care. Like, I'll be honest, but I will. Like, on my phone, it's like my phone already has it, right? Like, I didn't go pick a phone that had a 4K turbo color display. They just came with one. So what I'm interested in is, well, if these are in everyone's pockets, I do want to deliver a nice color to that. So problem number one is displays progress faster than CSS. Oh, look here, I can underline. They progress faster than CSS, right? CSS was like, okay, we got sRGB, that should cover a bunch of colors for a long time. And then like a few years later, people were like, HD color, and CSS was like, oh shit. And it just kind of like faded into the background as like, it was unknown. There were too many unknowns. Plus, problem number two, oh, I got to undo my little scribbler. It consumes more memory. These values, this is a bigger pool of color. That's not free. You can't just like reach deeper into a bigger color space without needing a bigger like unique identifier for all those colors. So you need to have a big, so basically the size of the in-memory variables doubles for HD color. So just something to think about. Also, a lot of there is sometimes twice as much color. So it kind of makes sense that the values had to double. But anyway, it consumes more memory. And a bunch of browsers were like, well, then it's dead to us. We're just not going to do it. And you're like, okay, well, but they did eventually bend. And I think every browser now ships HD color only for video and images. It's a secret. Like your Android browser right now for years has been able to show HD color in the brightest colors of your whole screen, but not from CSS, only if the image has a stupid little tag on it and has all the color data inside of it. Could you actually tap into that? And that shit's annoying to me, which is also why like we're going to get it in Canvas soon. So Canvas is going to, would be that anyway, we'll get there. Okay. So problem number 2, memory sucks. Okay. Problem number 3, there's got to be a dope API for it, right? You can't just like ship a bunch of new colors that are amazingly powerful and have no way to get them back from JavaScript. And you need a way to sort of access them, get their computed value, get the authored value, all the same stuff that you know and love about getting properties from CSS, setting them, manipulating them, especially if you're into CSS where you've got like, 10 dot pixels and you have all these functional object. You have a really nice object. So anyway, there's power in getting an API for this. So they can't just deploy all the colors without giving us a nice API. So the API is also kind of this blocker because it's a really confusing API. It has to do so much shit. It's crazy. Okay, so anyway, problem number 4, current color spaces don't offer perceptual uniformity. And let's see, I've got just a quick example of like, what is perceptual uniformity and why do I care? I think that's in here. I'm just going to skip to it. Is it over here? Is it? No, it's over here. Perceptual uniformity, is it next? Nope, maybe it was over. Okay, well, anyway, we'll get there. We'll get to why perceptual uniformity was important. It's essentially like lightness in HSL says it's 50%. You could have 3 colors that all say 50% lightness in HSL. They are very different brightness. So while the lightness is the same in the mathematical shape of the color space of HSL, which is something Chris Lilly, I'm assuming, will get much more into, the lightness is it's mathematically the same, but to us as humans, it's not. So what perceptual uniformity is trying to give us here is this concept of human-driven uniformity. Like if I'm looking at a span of 50 grays, they should look like they go from the span. Anyway, so these colors are also human tested. So humans have been, since like the 40s, asked about color, and they created a color shape to match humans. Right? Kind of cool. And we've been messing with sRGB, this like weird 255 shit for years. Just like, yeah, 200 of that and 30 of that. And yeah, because anyway, I don't know how to mix RGB and I've been messing with color for years. I just don't. I do understand the hue wheel, but anyway, we'll get there. Okay, so where to play with all this cool stuff, if you're interested, is Safari. Safari shipped some of this shit like 4 years ago. We'll talk about that. Safari Tech Preview 122. Which is where I'm on. So 122 Plus, I think they just released 124, which had some fixes for color, but also had some other stuff. Anyway, we'll get into that, and Firefox Nightly. So here's Firefox Nightly, which only has one demo, which is Color Mix. And Color Mix is showing down here that we have a color system that's light and dark based off of a brand. Let's see. Let me boost this up. Boosty. Okay. Boost it even more. And turbo boost, right? Okay, so here's our brand color. This is what we usually get out of Zeppelin. This is what a designer gives you. Somebody gives you a hex because it's portable and it's short, and it's also an sRGB. They don't know there's better colors, but whatever. We'll deal with it, right? Okay, so they give us a brand color, and what I get to do is color mix. So you might recognize this from SAS. We get to say which color space we want to do this in, which becomes surprisingly very important. And this is something I hope Chris Lilly will go over more. Maybe we'll cover on today, but it's like, what are these different color spaces and why do I care? But in this case, Firefox only supports sRGB colors right now. They don't have these new colors, but they do give us this color function by requiring that you say that it's going to be done in sRGB. So Firefox is like, hey, we'll give you color functions today, but only for sRGB. And so the only syntax that works is this one. And we'll get into this syntax in a little bit, but look, I can pass the brand as like a full-on color value and say, keep 25% of it, but otherwise go all in on black. And so I get this sort of like really dark blue. And then I can do that 40% here, so it's a little less blue, or a little bit more blue, a little less black, so it's a little lighter. And we get this color mix function inside of Firefox, and it's very fun to play with. So go ahead and go play with that in Firefox Nightly. I'm gonna go back to Safari Tech Preview and move on to Color level 4 and just kind of talk about like what did we get in color level 4, which is pretty stable. I'd say very stable and has shipped most of its features in browsers. Color level 4 is a preparatory, is that a word? Preparatory, whatever. It's in preparation for color level 5, which is really the juicy one. Like color level 5 is where it's at. It's like, yeah, this is all the cool stuff. Color level 4, well, let's just go over what is it. Okay, so here's a fun first example. We looked at like a bigger example of this earlier with 4 quadrants that compared sRGB, LCH, lab, and display P3 probably. I can't remember. We'll pull it up here in a second. But what's interesting here is I made this gradient over here, this sRGB one, like last year. It's 4 different radial gradients in each corner, and then they blend together in a nice way because they're going from like their intense color to transparency all towards the center together, and it makes this nice gradient. It got so many likes and tweets, and I thought it was a beautiful gradient, and then I remade it in LCH, and I'm like, holy shit, what the crap turd did I deliver over here? Look at this garbage set of colors. It sucks. I'm like, I'm still upset, as you can tell. Like, I'm like, what the hell is this gray dead shit everywhere? It's like the only place the colors are good is in the corner, and the rest of it's like a crusty gray turd. It sucks. So anyway, what we want to do is we want to get away from that. And that's because of how a lot of the colors are being interpolated, and the way that they mix is in sRGB. And we don't even have the option yet, well, but we do now, to do that in a different space where, so I think the key thing that always helps people out is like, let's say you have 2 colors and you're in just like a square, right? You're in like a color up here and a color over here. To interpolate, it just goes a straight line through it. Now, if your color shape has white in the center and your colors are on the edge, when you go from one color to the other, you pass through the center, which is white and gray and dulled out, and that's why you get these shitty colors. If you want a better color set, you go around. And so some people will get around getting around an sRGB by hand holding the keys. So like you can make a gradient with multiple stops, and you basically stop that shit around the horn for it so that it doesn't go straight through. It goes straight in between the points that you made. And you can hand hold a color to do a better gradient from an old one to new one. But in these new color spaces like LCH and lab, the way that they're shaped is they're shaped to move from a one intense color to the next while maintaining the intensity as opposed to going through the center. And that's why we see this better color set. Let's just move on, right? I don't know, unless there's any questions right there. But I just love this example. This example sets it up for me, like, why the hell should I care? And if you, and seriously, again, like on my display, this crap is gorgeous. It's so much more vibrant in person. It doesn't vibrate off the screen. It just makes the other ones look like they are dull and they didn't know how to draw red. Anyway, okay, so that's sRGB versus LCH, and just a nice visual to kind of like get you enticed to like, why should I care? Do I have more stuff to the left here? No, okay. So here's an example of Photoshop showing that they've had HSB, LAB, and color pickers for a long time. And you can see as I click in hue here, so I'm looking at the 2 pinks. I think this video is about to reset. Okay, so here I reached in the hottest pink of HSL, right? Top right. But now I go to lab and look, I pull it over. There's like hundreds more intense pinks to choose from. And then you see this little example here where it compared them. You could see them together. Here, we'll wait for it to compare. And you're just like, which pink do you want? Do you want the pink on the bottom or the new pink on the top? You're like, I wanted hot pink, damn it. Like, why'd you give me pale pink? Like, that's annoying. And so now I'm just like, I'm obviously outraged. But okay, so that's the value there. And then I love this little throwback down here. Look at this, only web colors. That's an important, like if we wanted to talk about history, like, yo, back in the day before sRGB, all you had were named colors. They were web safe, which is because, well, at every display, you couldn't get, ooh, the sun's coming in. You couldn't guarantee that a color would exist on that display. So now we're in the opposite problem where we have too many displays with too many colors, and like web safe is kind of hard to know. sRGB is essentially web safe. I'm going to knock this down. Come on, it's Seattle. Why the hell is the sun out? Just kidding. I love the sun. Rules. So anyway, I thought that was funny. It was like the only web colors. And so we're essentially getting now, and look at this warning. It's like, holy shit, that color's way out of gamut. It's like, that is very not safe for the web. And you're like, yeah, well, that's why I'm going to use a media query, fool, and it'll be fine. So quit giving me warnings. So here's another visual. This one's from Safari DevTools. If you click on a color swatch for display P3 color, and we'll talk about those in a second, and those have been supported. Those are the ones that have been supported for like 4 years. They have a sweet visual for you, and the visual shows you where the hell the cutoff is. And look at, here's where you're picking from colors before you saw this talk today, is this section. You're like, wow, those aren't the cool ones. Like, look, this is the range you actually wanted. Like, how often do you pick a color in here? Pff, never. How often do you pick colors in this range? Pretty much, I don't know, for me, exclusively every time. I mean, I'll calculate these. Like, these I'll make variants like in math. But anyway, this is showing you that it's not just a little bit more color. It's a lot more color to choose from, and it's arguably the best colors in your entire display that you can't use from your style sheet yet. And then this is kind of funny down here. We see this, like, there's like more blacks here, and so you'll hear people say like darker blacks, richer blacks, more blacks to choose from, and that has never resonated with me until recently. Oh, here, let me just pull over the example. I was making a demo. I'm assuming you all can see that because I'm just sharing my whole monitor. I'm making a demo, and you can see these shadows down here. I now realize how you can get better, darker blacks is through layering. If you notice, like, often when you make a dark shadow on something, it's hard to see. Well, if you're on a high definition display, it's got a shitload more black colors to use. And so look at my shadows. They're freaking awesome. They're hot and deep and dark, and they're still blue. Like, that shit isn't black. Like, that's a tinted shadow. I never use black shadows. That's a tinted shadow, and it just blends and looks beautiful because of how many dark colors it can create right here. It's able to just blend and make a better, anyway, so, okay, whatever, that was that. Hammer on that forever, but don't need to. Okay, so that was gamut. So this is like, there's some terminology to learn, and I've said gamut and color space a few times. Gamut is just a word that means like the range of something, and in this case, this is sRGB's gamut. This is what you have to choose from, and then this is what you have to choose from in display P3's gamut. And you can overlay them, and you've probably seen an overlay before that was like, here's sRGB and here's display P3, and you're like, why are they? Anyway, it's like sometimes those visuals are great, but they don't necessarily resonate. And what that's just trying to tell you is it's like, the amount of options that you have is just so much bigger in a larger gamut. So there's two different concepts, right? You have gamut, which is like how many colors do you have to choose from, and then you have color space. And color space is what determines the shape that they pack all the colors into, and it's always a 3D shape. So we've talked about a box as being like going straight through, but it's really a cube, right? And when you go from a color, you're going through the center of the cube to the other side, at least in RGB because they're a cube. HSL, cylinder. These things take mathematical shapes unless they're LCH and lab and stuff like that, where these are perceptual. Actually, let me just see if I can pull up a quick little link. And bitchin', I love this color picker. Check this out. I love being able to say bitchin' because it's a colorful talk today. Okay, this is HSL UV. This is just someone's made up color space. And what they're trying to do, what I really love is as you change various lightnesses, it shows you the amount of shit a human could actually see. You'll never pick a color a human can't tell the difference of because this thing is literally limiting you to it. And I like that. And also shows you where like some of the other like aspects are coming from. But I love that it changes its shape for me and gives me this visual to support like how many yellows and greens can we see? And we're like, oh, that's not that many. But I think blues, we can see a whole bunch of blues. So if I pump up the saturation, go to a blue. Well, anyway, I really like this too. So again, red colors just gets really confusing. There's like so many layers. And let's talk about what came in color level 4. So we have color functions. This is how I'm accessing the color in Safari. I'm using, so you could see it here in this little code snippet right here. Color display P3, I'm going 101, and that's essentially 1 being maximize the amount of bits and vibrance and color that you can get from that channel. I don't give a crap about channel 2, and I want to maximize channel this other one, and you can see they give me the hottest pink that it basically could produce in those 2 channels. So just pumped full color up those, and then reached into the display, and the display goes, okay, I'm high definition. Someone's asking me to reach into the peak of my bits, and so it's going to go produce as much vibrance on those pixels as it can. So, right, really cool. And different devices will be able to reach a different peak. And so it's on implementation of a browser to decide how far to reach based on the capability. And really quick note about privacy, notice that we don't have a query that says, like we have dynamic range, we'll talk about this here. We have dynamic range highs, all we can ask. We don't know how powerful someone's display is because that could be a vector for tracking them. We don't want to track people based on how great their display is, among other things. And so, yeah, we got this color function. This color function lets you specify exactly which color space that you want to access. There's pre-built color spaces. Display P3 is one, lab is one, sRGB, LCH is one. You can also create color spaces and then access colors from them that way. So you could be like rad. You could make a color space called rad and then access a color in it and give values, and it would come back with something as long as you provided a color profile. And that's probably something Chris will go into. Okay, so that's color. Color is this intent is to, yeah, you pick the space that you want and then you pass like channel values to it. It's always 3 that then produce a color. So let's talk about HD color. And this is this media query high dynamic range. This has been around for a long time. It's got only implementation in Safari so far, but I think as colors are going to get more popular, we're going to see this pop out. And so I can easily upgrade my hot pink colors by using a media query, targeting my class name right here, and then just passing in a nice hot color. And so it's like this progressive enhancement. It's like I chose hot pink, and then I can upgrade to the hottest pink if a browser is coming with the capability. And I thought that was really neat. And you've had this ability in Safari since 2017. My guess is they needed it for iTunes because iTunes needs to look gorgeous and vibrant and beautiful on their displays, and they were probably not getting the color quality that they wanted. And so they went and invested in how do we ship super high quality colors really fast, and they shipped this thing. And it apparently offers pretty much 50% more colors than sRGB. It's just so funny, some of those numbers. I'm like, what? I didn't even know I needed more color until you showed me how crappy the colors were that I have to choose from. Here's another example of just seeing that this is all working inside of Safari. We'll probably open up a live demo here in a second. That's just that same image we looked at that shows us the gamut. I just think that's a really nice visual to help people understand. Okay, so color level 4 introduced. I thought I had more slides on some color. Oh, I do. Yeah, I looked over here. Hey, there's that image I was looking for. Okay, so color level 4 also introduced hex with alpha. So we have like a color like #00, which is 3 digits, right? And then it can be repeated into 6. Well, we can also do 4 now. So you can do a hex color with some alpha, a hex color with some alpha. If you want to look really cool, you can just blow people's mind and deliver them a 4-digit hex. And they're like, what the hell is this? And you're like, yo, it's a color of some alpha, fool. I don't know if that's cool or not, but you could definitely do it, and it'd be fun. We have functional notation. This is the one I use all the time, and this was the preparatory transition. So we used to have HSL 0 degrees, comma, 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 comma. We had commas all over, and we had to do HSL and HSLA. If we wanted to add some opacity, we had to change the functioning we actually called. So what they did is they unified everything. They said, get away with the commas. It's just going to be 3 channels, 1, 2, 3. And if they want to add opacity, we'll slash and we'll add it. You can either do a decimal or you can do a percentage. And so we got flexibility. We got this ability to also normalize the way that we talk about like we access these colors. So we have a functional notation that got rid of all the commas and got rid of the alpha channel that was in the function name. And that was preparation for LCH, lab, and some of these additional colors we're going to get. Functional notation. This functional notation is supported everywhere except IE. And so if you're not supporting IE, I would say use this right away. Anyway, and it works really nice with custom properties because you can perform operations like on individual channels and adjust lightness in HSL by doing a calc. It's really fun. Oh, here's that visual I was talking about. Okay, so down here we have HSL. This is 50% gray to HSL, right? Then we have 50% green, 50% blue. And then I went and checked in lab, and I'm like, what does lab think these lightnesses is? And lab says this one's lightness is 53. I'm like, that's pretty good. That looks like a medium gray to me. Yes. This does not look like medium green to me at all. That's bright as shit. And look, lab confirms, goes, hell yeah, that's bright, right? Okay. And then we got blue. Ooh, look, they're almost the same blue. Ooh, a little different. And this one says 66.5. And I'm like, that confirms too. This looks a little bit brighter. It's not as neutrally medium as this one. And so this is the problem space. When I was talking about perceptual colors, this lightness that's in lab is, it's human oriented. This lightness is just some math shit that we are dealing with. And it works kind of good, but there's times when you're trying to create like a color system, like in a map where you need like all these values in between. Anyway, there's some very like poignant examples we could go look at about like when perceptual colors come in really handy. So then here's some of our other functions we got in color level 4. This is LCH, lab, and lab. Lab and LCH each have their own different kind of syntaxes. So this one's lightness, chroma, hue. So the lightness comes first as opposed to HSL where lightness is last. That kind of gets me all the time. If it was HSL and if it was CHL, I feel like I would transition easier to LCH, but it kind of flips things around. So you have to kind of reverse them a little bit. But anyway, starts with your lightness, goes into your chroma, which is kind of like the vibrance. It's a little bit like saturation, but not quite. And then hue. Hue is everything that you've known and loved today, right? You've got a wheel, pick a color on the wheel, and then we'll go from there. The hue, that's kind of what's nice about colors, that hue concept of the just like being a wheel, the 360-degree hue selector doesn't change for any of these. It's still always cyclical. The colors will come back upon themselves like a little recursive tail eating. And then, okay, this is an important set of verbiage to learn, is like device independent color versus device dependent color. So unlike CMYK, which is a device dependent color space, right? CMYK literally has 4 cartridges on the device to represent CMYK. So when you specify it, it is device dependent. It is literally pointing to the buckets of ink inside your printer, right? Device dependent. Now, device independence means I'm going to specify a color that doesn't necessarily have any hardware that's specifically made for it. It's just sort of articulating a color in a space, and it's device independent. And that gives us some powers. It turns out sRGB has been device independent this whole time as well, but we feel quite maxed out with it when we use 255. There's a discrepancy here. So I don't know how much we want to go into this little background, but Firefox has different colors than all the other browsers because of it treats sRGB more independent than anyone else. If you say sRGB 255, 255, and 0 in Firefox, it does what LCH and others will do, which is it asks for the peak out of the device, right? This is device independent. So it says, hey, they maxed out 255, they maxed out the color request, and Firefox will go paint the most vibrant color it can find, regardless of like the color space. And so it can produce colors that aren't the same as other browsers because they're more independent than everyone else. Everyone else will clamp it. And Firefox just kind of straight passes your values straight through to the painting engine. So kind of like a weird little thing. And we'll see if that resolves, but that's why device independent is nice, is you can sort of request these colors and the device is able to do what it can with it. Right? So we have a lot of progressive enhancement ideas with color now. Okay, I think that's it for those slides. We'll go into color level 5. I'm going to see if there's any questions in here. Yeah, 125 just got released. Nice. Bramus, what's up? Hot pink, I know, not that hot. Honestly, I knew hot pink wasn't that hot because deep pink is hotter. And you can go see it in the color, like when you go to the color picker, like deep pink is literally like the deepest pink that they could find in the sRGB color space, whereas hot pink is just sort of like this more pale pink. But deep pink just doesn't have the same ring to it as hot pink, so I keep using hot pink. Anyway, very nice. Yeah, HSL UV, thank you for sharing that link. Yeah, color spaces. There's so much to learn about color, just in color spaces and gamuts, and it gets really heavy. It's like, it's very science related. But anyway, I'm trying to study all this stuff and then figure out how do I use it as a web developer. Like that's what I want to know. I'm like, where does this become valuable in my pocket? Oh, Safari doesn't have overscroll behavior. Okay, so here is an example of me using the color contrast function. So color level 5 brings us the ability to manipulate color. So where color level 4 was sort of like normalizing our syntax, giving us some new color spaces, giving us more independent colors, and sort of like letting us request deeper colors. Color level 5 lets us manipulate those. So we get to manipulate a color and in whatever space we want, which comes in really handy for gradients and color manipulation, where you need to create a nice harmonious perceptual system. So the color there was like 3 functions introduced, and we'll go over them each individually. So we've kind of already touched on color mix. So color mix at its most simplest is like this, right? Red and white, mix those two together, get a pink. Take your brand color like we did earlier. Oh, here, let me scroll this over into the center. Take your brand color like we did earlier. Keep 25% of it, but otherwise go 75% black. There's 2 different ways to do the syntax. You can say like how much to keep, or you can say how much to bring in. It's just on you for how you want to articulate it. And that's color mix. I don't think color mix is that confusing, but it does have some cool use cases. And I think it's just nice to have in the tool belt. This one, though, is crazy magical and pretty much impossible to implement in any other way other than getting it in CSS. There's stuff that it knows that nothing else could know. And this is why it becomes the most magical runtime dynamic color function that I think has ever existed. And it's called color contrast. And what color contrast does is it lets you specify a color to be measured against. So look at this, I've got like a background. I'm trying to find an accessible color. That's my goal here. I want to make sure the text is legible on this background. So I pass the background color here, and then I say versus black or white. And this is in its simplest form. I can just request which color gives me the most contrast against this background. So that's what the versus is. It's going to go through each of these and find the first one that passes the contrast ratio scores and use it. You can give a fat list of like design system colors, and it'll just be like, nope, doesn't pass, nope, doesn't pass. No. Hey, look, that passes. And you get a color on your background that's accessible that the browser is finding for you. Anybody want to give up creating accessible colors? I mean, I love accessible interfaces, but I do not love nudging all my colors by like 2% just to pass some stupid thing. It's like I want it to be more automated. It should be easier to pass contrast, and here's color contrast. So let's go to a more like dramatic example. And this is text on BG. So here I have like my brand blue background, and then I get to pass it all of my different text variants that I have. And then at the end, look, I get to say which ratio do I want to pass? You can pass AA or AAA, or you can pass your own value. You could write 5.2. Can I type with this thing? No, it looks like crap. Anyway, 5.2. And you can pass that here. So you can be like, okay, here's a whole list of colors. It needs to be this accessible, and it will find it for you. That's amazing. I'm very excited about color contrast. This is prototypable in Safari. And so that's what we saw in this first example is I'm changing the lightness in DevTools, and it's just picking a color as I change it. And that is so cool. I love, it's basically I'm building accessibility into my colors as opposed to bending my colors to meet accessibility. It's very cool. Okay, so that's color contrast. Then we have color adjust. This one does not have any implementations in browsers. So we're color contrast, color mix, and relative colors. We'll get into relative syntax in a second. It's my most favorite. But anyway, here's color adjust. And color adjust is one very similar to the Sass world, where you essentially say, here's my color, adjust the lightness by minus 50%. And then you get a 50% less bright brand color. Well, less light. Lightness is not brightness. I need to get good at fixing my verbiage there. But then look, this one makes a lighter color, this one makes a darker color. So kind of cool. And they have all those keywords that you know and love. They're in the spec and you can go check it out. That's color adjust. Then we have relative color. And what I like about relative color is, to me, this feels like JavaScript destructuring. And I'm a big fan of just terseness, and I barely want to write code. My favorite thing to do is write very few characters and get like a big return for my buck. So relative color, you get, again, you keep your brand as like a hex value, but then you sort of extract the channels out. You say, so here, I want to make a new color, LCH, from that brand color, extract the 3 channels, 1, 2, 3. Now, what I've done is I've used them straight up here, C and H, and I just put them right back in. I'm like, yeah, I'm not changing chroma or hue, so just go ahead and just use those as the color values. But I did change the lightness, and I set it to an absolute value. So notice I didn't do any calculations on it. I just straight up squashed it, which I ended up doing, I think, in a lot of my colors. So what's nice is, yeah, this is an absolute change. I'm saying grab the hue and the chroma out of this color, but blast away that lightness into something new. I want to grab some control. So I'm creating variants by destructuring the channels out of the color, putting them back in one line of CSS code. It's so cool. Anyway, okay, here's another one, because you can do calc on it, right? Okay, so like extract the lightness. I'm not changing the lightness today, just put it right back in. But that chroma, subtract 20% on there. And it goes, all right, cool. I'll subtract 20% off of whatever the hell was in here and stick it right here. And you're like, cool. And then pop the hue in there. And you've got yourself color manipulation in line on channels. Anyway, I think that is so amazing. I think this one is actually at risk. It's in the spec, and the spec just got published today. Hey, how about that, everybody? Color level 5 and 4 got brand new public pushes today, like where the drafts went, no, they're candidate ready. So this stuff that we're talking about, it just hardened today. This is like anyway, I didn't know that would happen. It's kind of lucky. Anyway, the relative color syntax is at risk because it is perceived as being too confusing, or there's other ways to do it. And so why do we need this kind of second or third way? And I'm going to do what I can to try to keep it because I'm a big fan. All right, and here's another little example from Safari. We've got this color mix. So I'm mixing two colors, and this is just to show that the syntax works. I just think it's nice to see it in there. And then here's color contrast again, white versus red versus white versus green, and it will find the appropriate one. So cool. Okay, so I think that's the end of my slides. And from here on out, we're essentially going to go through demos and the spec. So I'll show you where I look for things in the spec. Like if I'm looking in, this is color level 4. Check it out. One of the things I like to do in here is I go down to LCH and lab. Oh, that's not what I want. HSL, HWB, color profiles. No, it's up here. Oh yeah. Okay, I come into here because, so specifying lab and LCH, I need to know how much you can pass into here. So if we look at right here, it's like the CIE lightness can exceed this range on some systems. So essentially you can ask for lightness up to 400 in LCH. You can ask for lightness in the 400 range, and it's on the browser to just kind of figure out what to do with that. It gets clamped at 0. But yeah, so it's essentially like you can ask for the browser and the color system to actually exceed what it might even think it can do. And I just think that's really neat. There's also other values in here, like here, a minimum value of 0, but it shouldn't exceed 230. So like right down here, it says, let's see, we're talking about chroma. Okay, so when you're looking at the chroma of these, I can bump this up too. When you're looking at the chroma, what can I pass in there, right? Because you're like, okay, LCH, look at all these weird numbers. You're just like, ew, lightness kind of makes sense. And we just learned that can go up to 400%. Chroma here. Okay, so what are how high of a range can I pass a chroma? Like at least HSL is sort of like normalized. It goes from 0 to 100 most of the time. But this lets me request a device independent color that could be way far out into a crazy edge of the gamut. And so in practice, they're trying to give you a tip here. They're like, in practice, try not to put more than 230 in there. And I've tried. So I went into these browsers and I'm like, okay, let's put a color in here that just continues to go up. So we could even do it really quick. But anyway, you go in there, you type a color, and I would just hit shift and up on my chroma until I stopped seeing a change. And I think depending on the color, it was somewhere around 120 and 130 for me. So just kind of interesting little tidbits we can get out of the specs here. And then I want to close up just by showing some demos. And then we'll go through some questions here. So let's see, we're at 8:49. Should I stop now and go for questions? Are we going till 9, or how much time do we have?
We don't have any time limit, so just
sick.
Go ahead. It's fine. And if any of the attendees has questions, please ask them. So
yeah, jump in, everybody. So this is a color picker from Leah Veru. It's an LCH color picker. And I think the most important thing to be looking at down here is this tiny little set of color down here. It says color is actually RGB, which is out of sRGB gamut. So it's been auto-corrected to the boundary. Essentially, when you're in here picking colors with LCH, like this is what I'm here for. I just want to use a color picker. Yeah, some lightness changes, some chroma changes. Notice how I'm finally in a color that's not in a warning state. Oh yeah, that's the link right here. Yeah, good call, css.land. I'll start sharing these links as I pull them through. We're finally not in an sRGB out of gamut range warning. And what I find with this picker is I'm again reminded at how poopy sRGB colors are. Like, look, all I did was like pull this into like a little bit more of a red. I'm like, oh, that looks like a nice red. And it's like out of bounds. And I'm like, what? Which red is in bounds? This one? That sucks. It looks like salmon. Like, oh, hyperventilating. No, give me the colors. And so that's like one of the warnings about these colors is you can kind of get yourself into a couple of issues. Like one of them is you could ask for an LCH bright ass color like here, right? You could, hells yeah, go for some awesome sick pink that's just crazy vibrant. But you're going to get clamped somewhere along the way. And if you don't know that, and all you did was request this turbo rad color, and it starts looking poopy in all these places, this is your opportunity to go more of a progressive enhancement. So instead of doing like graceful degradation, you could start with like, well, what's my bare minimum color here? And I can build up to this vibrancy. But I think anyway, that's one of my things. Every time I'm here picking a color in LCH, I get this reminder that sRGB is not very big and that it's really easy to get out of gamut if you're not being careful. Like look at even when we were in the Photoshop picker, right? The Photoshop picker let us really quickly pull into a cooler pink and it's like, warning, warning, not web safe. And so, yeah, these days, if I'm picking colors, I either come here or I go to the Safari picker, because the Safari picker, even though it doesn't have LCH or lab yet, it does let me pick and display P3, which is a very big color space. And I feel pretty good about picking colors there. That's also what's well supported right now. So that feels good too. Let's see, no questions. Great. Here's another one to articulate that thing we were talking about earlier where colors have to pass through the center in RGB. Well, Leah Veru built a little tool. So red to cyan is a traditionally like difficult one to do because, and then here's another thing. If you're going around to find the color, do you go clockwise or counterclockwise? And how do you pick? What if I'm going from this color to this color and I don't want to go that way? I want to go this way. I know, right? Silence. You're like, oh shit, I don't know. It's hard. And I think in the spec, they are trying to articulate how you can pick which way. But I think what it does is it just goes whichever way is easiest. Like if it's directly in the middle and it's perfect, it's going to go clockwise. If it's just slightly that way, it's going to go clockwise. And just slightly, it's going to go counterclockwise. So it tries to take the shortest distance. And these are things that are in the spec. This is stuff that Chris Lilly is going to go into. You're just going to be like, this is intense information about color. It's because these things need to be defined. And so that's what this example is trying to show you. Is like, here's sRGB going from red to blue. And actually, let's see if we can do another color combo. Who cares? But if we do this in lab, we can see that we kind of get this more perceptually uniform colors, but there's still kind of gray in the center there. Let's check LCH. LCH is looking quite bright, and I don't know, that one, that's kind of bizarre. Here's HSL, again, even brighter and kind of worse. XYZ, you're like, oh, interesting choices, XYZ, and HWB. So this is a good example of why you're going to want, here, let me share this code pen. Why you're going to want, oh, nice, somebody's on it, rad. Oh, you've got my talk up, huh? Oh, no, you don't, these are all my tabs. They're not in my talk. Anyway, nice, he's just on it. He's like, I'll find it. Great, thanks for pasting those links, I appreciate it. But this demo shows you how difficult it is just to create a color ramp from one color to the next and how the spaces can drastically change the way that it feels. Red to blue. Right? HWB, XYZ, just use my keyboard here. Look at that, LCH to HSL. Look at, they're pretty much going different rotations around the hue. So anyway, Chris Lilly will be the person who can pull these up in a color space, show you the mapping, rotate something in 3D, and show you the path that the interpolation took as it went from one color to the next. It's really cool stuff. Okay, here's that demo we were looking at earlier. Let's just look at some of my code in here. So here's my sRGB selector. Oh, let me boost it. Boosty, boosty. Right, sRGB, red, cyan, hot pink, Rebecca purple, and red. Oh, I should have done deep pink. Maybe this was an unfair comparison. It's 2 P's in deep pink, and it's really annoying. And negligible difference over there. Okay, so we'll go back to hot pink. Okay, so right, nothing too crazy here. And also notice I did a conic this time. So in one of the other examples, I had 4 radial gradients that were all blending into one space. And this one, I just went around the horn and let them sort of interpolate as they could. And here is the display P3. So display P3, and look at all these colors I'm specifying. I'm reaching way up into each of those color spaces at the maximum. Although these I did at 0.5, and I just had to kind of discover which ones would give me these other similar vibrant colors, and that's how I worked. Conic, right? So here's our LCH, and look, oh look, I maximized all these at 132. Okay, we were talking earlier about this can go up to 230. You just might not start seeing any difference. So let's see if I'm gonna have to different hotkeys. Click all these, see if we see any difference at 230. So we're looking at this one down here. Let's go to 30 and see if we see a difference. Well, that's not a good sign if we're not even seeing a color change in LCH. Can't I change colors in here? It says processing code down here. I mean, chroma is at 0 now, so I don't know what's going on there. Anyway, I guess we'll check out changes later. Let's enter somewhere just to see it. We'll go down to 30. I know I kept hitting space and stuff to kind of kick it in. I can see it down here like processing. Who cares? I'll refresh, leave. Maybe this will let me change it. I'd love to see these go down to something low. Oh, there we go. Change. Looks like I just had like a zombie runner. Okay. Right. Okay. So now that we've got those there, let's try 230. See if we see anything different here. Okay. We'll go back to 130. I saw a difference. Okay. So I should probably pump these up higher. Let's go to 180. Holy, I just made the LCH example more vibrant. I'm still exploring with a lot of the stuff, and this is how I work often is I'm in here playing because I don't have good debug tools in browsers yet to go look at these colors and like where I'm at. I just got to guess. Okay, cool. So that's that example. Here, let me share that one in case that's not shared yet. Boom. Check out the next demo here. Oh, that was an image. So what's interesting about taking a screenshot of that is I can share it with you, and it has a bunch of high definition color information in it, but you will clamp it on your display. Your display will be like, I don't know how to do that. You get my maximum red. But it still downsizes it enough that you can compare. And so it's like it scales it down. So it like doesn't just clamp. It doesn't just cut off the rest of the extra color information. It actually scaled it down so that the maximum red in the image of the peak red was still red, and then the other pink looked less red, right? So it's like we get into this very web-centric mentality with color, at least I do, which is a lot of this is a request. I'm requesting a font size change. I'm requesting a color change. I'm requesting that these boxes don't go batshit crazy and crawl off the page and cause a scroll bar, right? A lot of this stuff is a request, and we're doing our best to sort of like just nudge everything into the right spot, and colors for me feel no different than that now. Here's another example. Just share this one in the chat. And yeah, if you have an iOS device with Safari Tech Preview on it, pull that open. If you're on this one though, and you open this up on Safari Stable, you will see sRGB and Display P3. So if you've got an iPad or an iPhone, go ahead and open these up and you'll see those colors in there. So this was LCH and this one was Lab. So Lab is apparently the better color space. See you, Andy. Thanks for coming, man. That was awesome. Lab is supposed to be the better color space for gradients. The way that it's shaped and the way that the colors are packed together, they're supposed to interpolate better. And so what I was doing in this example of LCH versus Lab is I was trying to test that. And I don't know about you all, but oh, here, let's do this. Can I just pull it down below? Okay. I wanted to see, was it really better? And from what I can tell, at least in this current example, they are nearly identical. Although look at the purple, and this one is a little bit better down here. So funny. It's like what I like about a lot of this is your eye doesn't know something sucks until you see something suck, and then you're like, oh crap, can't unsee. Hopefully you're getting that feeling right now. Oh no, I can't unsee how bad some of these colors are. Okay, so here is our color contrast fun example. Let's see, is mine just on the body here? Background color. Oh yeah, because I did it all up here in the custom properties. So it's like I just defined some colors in my, just like I would normally define all my colors. And then underneath there, I can say this color on this other brand color and then use them. So here's color right over here is on blue too. And then the background color is blue too. So you could make a class really easily that's just called like, well, maybe you make a background color class for blue 2, so BG blue 2, and that could come with this color definition. That means all colors that are using that background will always have text that's legible. So you can like bundle and pack these things together. And here is the way that that looks. So here's on blue 2. I say against var blue 2, right? That's what I'm looking for. I want a color contrast against that. And I'm passing other blues from my color system so that it can find the first one that has the appropriate amount of contrast to give me a nice, subtle, soft amount of text contrast that passes ratios for free and gives me, it's just like the best of like every world, I think. So let me pull that back out. Here's this example into here, boop, boop. And, okay. Here's another example of this. So this one's in Safari. We have a color mix dark theme again. So remember last time we were looking at Firefox, and Firefox had in RGB here and in sRGB here, and Safari does not have the keyword in. There are discrepancies between these prototype implementations. And actually, oh, here in that Leah Veru color picker, or yeah, look at this. In keyword, question mark. She'll put the in word for you in the color if you're in a browser that needs it. So that's kind of like, you know, folks were prototyping and then the spec changed and we're like, ooh, oops, okay, I guess I'm going to help people out get past that. So this was like a, did I share this one to the group? Because that one's fun. You can go like play with colors, open that up in Safari Tech Preview and start making a color system with color mix. I think that's really fun. Then there is this one. So this is another color mix example. And I went a little bit more here where I have like light, dark, and dim. Put my colors here. Oop. So yeah, I have a brand color, right? So, oh, here, let's change it. F00. Maybe I'll refresh my demo here again. Leave. Up here. Let's go to red. A red-based theme now. Ah, yes, there it is, red. So the dark was just slightly red. The light, oh, look, you can see the red and the color down here, but really it's nowhere else. And dim should be, ooh, dim is just kind of brown. Let's do lime green. Hey, look at this. I got dynamic color systems off of a hex. I feel like this is one of the dream scenarios that people wanted out of color functions. It's what they're using Sass for. It's what we want to be built into the browser so that we can reduce the crap loads of styles that we're delivering to power this. And instead, we can do this. Look at this. I have 3 themes in just 9 or 10 lines of code. I am quite excited about this. And what's interesting too is I think color mix is the weakest of all the functions. I think color adjust is the next weakest. Color contrast is the dopeness, and it's going to be on a pedestal for me for a long time. I don't know of anything more magical than the color contrast function, but I love the relative syntax. So let's go look at how to play with the relative syntax, and we'll do that in this demo. This is the final one. So what I wanted to do with this demo is I wanted to test the perceptual changes, and this one we'll do live in the browser, which is that should be nice. I'm going to refresh, just make sure we got latest in here. Okay, because the concept of perceptual colors was that if I reduce the lightness, it shouldn't get muddier. It should stay within the chroma and kind of keep and maintain its vibrance while just becoming lighter. This is something that some of the other ones don't do very good at, is as they get lighter, they get grayer and kind of get muddier. And so we don't want that. And what I wanted to do was have a base color in the center here. Hey, look, there's a 230. LCH, lightness 25%. I'm like, give it to me. That's essentially me going, I don't know. The spec says I can reach this high though. So I'm going to reach there and see what happens. And look, I got a green that's like, well, that's not really that exciting, even though it's like super high up in there. But okay, let's look at the variant here of lighter. I'm going to bust up. Else as big as Safari is going to let me go here. Excellent. Okay, so over here, we can see that I have a commented out color, which is using well, here, let's just go to the first example. So we have a background color. So it's being set into a custom property, LCH from color. So color is coming from here. So this particular one is the green class, and I'm setting the color on the whole sort of row itself. And then I take that green and I destructure it and I make it 75% lightness. So I basically obliterate whatever it came with and I set it to 75%. Then I bring in the chroma and the hue and I just leave them there. But this example here, which looks like it works, like, look, they're like, oh, your syntax is good. Well, I'm like, yeah, the syntax is per spec, but look, we lost our color. So it doesn't allow a calculation yet to happen on any of the individual channels in the relative syntax. And so the absolute solution here is the only way to go, where I just sort of like pass something new. So I'm waiting for that to come in because that, I think, will make this a really, really dynamic way to play with color. And then look at I love this kicker right here. Look at text, color contrast against the background, black or white. And I use the background and I use the text. I have a feeling we are going to be moving our way much more to custom properties like this, where custom properties get defined as definitions. Then we use them and manipulate them always to just create this one custom property that we bring around. So like text color and background color, these don't change. They just get used by shit. And then you have a bunch of other scenarios that are changing it: dark theme, light theme, dim theme, et cetera, et cetera. And these never have to change. They're just they're just there. And so, yeah, I think this pattern right here, we have color that's always looking to contrast against a background. And then we have backgrounds. Anyway, this is a very exciting feature. And let's look at the darker here, because I had to change this darker to make it better because I didn't like what happened at first. So we have a darkness down here set to 5. So that's why we have a nice dark color. Look at how it's still very green, right? Like I was impressed. If I bring the chroma back in for what it is at default, I'm like, that's hardly darker. So I was kind of disappointed. I was like, I crushed the lightness out of this color. I set it to 5%. And I'm like, it still looks super green and it's kind of light. So I took the chroma and put it at 50, and that sort of like desaturated a little bit and made it closer to the darkness that I was looking at there. But I thought that was interesting that as I'm playing with these colors, I'm not getting everything I expect. I implore y'all to try this. Go in here and play these specs while they just got candidate readied. Not enough people are playing with them. Not enough people are prototyping with them. They do still have rough edges. Constantly, Chris or I or other people are like, oh, snap, our spec is not covering that use case. And you can find them by just sort of trying to use it and based on like the expectations that you have and be like, hey, I'm not getting what I wanted to here. And we can go adjust it. So those are all of my demos. Did I share this last demo in the chat? Here, let me send that in here. There's all the demos, all the slides. So we went through color level 4, which updates all the functional notation syntax, gives us some access into some additional color spaces. We have the color function, so we can even create our own color spaces and access them directly. Color level 5 gave us color manipulation functions, gave us the ability to, anyway, yeah. And here we are with a bunch of really fun demos, and we're moving towards this future where we are going to be like the back of the front prop ops. I just made this teaser tweet the other day. Like there's like custom property ops. Prop ops, that is totally a role. Like if you've got a design system and you've got tokens coming from a server, they come in as an entry point into your design system in CSS. Those are all the definitions. Those are just raw values, like straight out of DB. Then you got to give them all these names and all the variants, and then you have to use those. This is a very intense system that we're working towards in the future for a user visiting your site and just getting this seamless, perfect experience that CSS is doing all of the heavy lifting. I'm crazy pumped about it. I'm super pissed at RGB. And thanks for coming to this talk.